welcome to the Dumb Saints podcast. I'm Alex.
Low peasy.
We have been having some great conversations, and this conversation is a continuation of the last conversation. So we are still talking about the model of modern church ministry, and specifically when it comes to large churches versus small churches, and a lot of the mindsets and challenges that come with those two models. So we're going to continue that conversation. But at the end of the last podcast, I said I would tell you guys more about Erastus. And so I figured we'd just kick off this podcast.
The comments are like, tell us more.
Yeah, so Erastus.
Someone goes to the comments, there's not one comment.
Dude, this is one of those cool...
Someone's calling in right now. They want to know more about Erastus.
Okay, so this is a really cool part of biblical history that I found, because when we went to Corinth, which I talked about, when we went to Corinth, one of these stones that we saw, it said Erastus, and he was listed as the treasurer. Well, in Romans 16:23, Paul says, Gaius, my host, and the host of the whole church, greets you. Erastus, the treasurer of the city, greets you, and Quartus, a brother. So he's like, yo, what's up?
These are my mains.
Hey, man, so glad to see you guys. It's like, hey, tell PJ I said hey.
Yeah.
The Romans know who these guys are, and he's like just sending greetings.
No, it's saying, hey, PJ said hey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Paul is like, hey, Erastus, the treasurer of the city, greets you. Okay? So we know there's a guy named Erastus. What's interesting is this is not a common name in the Roman Empire. And in fact, there's only one other Erastus where there's any documentation that's ever been found in the Roman Empire. Erastus. And it was used as a nickname. So the only legally named Erastus that we have in any historical documentation is this guy. So we know with high confidence that the Erastus whose name is on the block found in the ruins of Corinth is the same Erastus who's being referred to as the treasurer of the city here in Romans 16:33. So that was a real dude. We have archaeological evidence of it, and we see it here in this epistle. Take it even further. This dude's name is Erastus, which basically translates to Eras is from the word eros, which is like sex.
Nice.
Eroticism, eros.
Love it.
And Erasmus is like man. So this guy's name is literally sexy man. in the Roman tongue.
Sexy money man.
Yeah. Well, he eventually. So he's referred to as Erastus. His name is Erastus.
Now I get why the other guy had the nickname.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So this is what's crazy. It's a very uncommon name, because why the freak would you name your kid Sexy Man? This society of Roman was a very erotic society, and that's true. But it was interesting because for us, it's like looked as like, oh, they were so sinful in their nature. Well, in some cities, having sex with prostitutes was a form of worship to the gods. So this is what happens, especially in Corinth. We found this in a lot of cities. There's these cities, and there'll be usually some kind of geological formation nearby. That's a high hill that can be seen. And they tend to build these cities and settle around these high hills. The Greeks did this, and then when the Romans took over the land, they would just kind of like adopt the cities and turn them back into their own settlements. Yeah. So all these cities have like a layer of Greece and then a layer of Rome. So in Jesus' time, Paul's time, Corinth is this trade city, which I guess we're just giving a historical lesson here.
I love it.
Corinth, there's a small sliver of land in order to get through. And if you didn't get through, it's similar to like the Panama Canal. You would have to go around a huge landmass. Well, in Corinth, they figured out a technology that specialized in loading boats onto logs and moving it across their shortest piece of land, and then loading the boat back up on the other side, and you could go off. You would save days of travel.
Geniuses.
So Corinth, basically, you pay a tax to the city in order to be able to get your boat through. Yeah. So they're making money, dude.
Bank.
It's a very wealthy city. This guy, Erastus, is the treasurer of this city.
Oh, he's seen a piece.
Okay.
He's seen a percentage.
The Romans they had a habit of making rich, wealthy socialites the treasurers, because the idea is this guy already has a ton of money. He's not going to steal from our taxes. Okay?
Clever.
Well, we don't know how Erastus got saved. We don't know, but somewhere along the way, he was ministered to. He heard the gospel, and he said yes. We know that he wasn't a Jew because his name is Erastus, so he was a Gentile. He was saved, and he basically becomes like one of Paul's right-hand men. And it's interesting because that may have saved him, as we talked about in the other story where Paul is brought before the governor on the Berea in Corinth. He's being judged, and the guy sets him free. And we don't know this for sure, but let's say you're freaking one of your highest disciples is the treasurer of the city. Do you not think that he's going to say
he's
something?
He's going to pull some strings, hopefully.
It's just highly likely that may have helped.
That guy's in my small group. He's a good guy.
It may have helped his case. Okay, so Erastus, we don't know, but what's likely happened, because this was common, is that Erastus was named Erastus because he was dedicated to a temple. In Corinth, they worshipped the god of sex, Eros. I don't know if Eros is the name of the god, so let's just do your own research here, and you can find out some of the details on this.
The one that represents this.
The temple in Corinth was dedicated to a sex god, and so every night prostitutes would come down from the hill and they would have sex. You would pay the prostitute, and that would be your way of worshiping the god, and that's how the temple was funded. You paid dues, you gave an offering or whatever, and you had sex. That was their way of worshiping. It's possible that Erastus was named sexy man, sex man, and then given to the temple, which often happened as a prostitute. And then because you are a spiritual leader, you can work your way up in the temple. You're like looked at in society. Here we look down on prostitutes. Well, in a city like Corinth, that was like an admirable thing. It'd be the way that we view clergy. They like viewed these prostitutes. Wow, you dedicated your life to the gods. What an honorable thing they did. And then Erastus at some point in his life may have pivoted into, and this is all speculation. None of this is in the Bible. It's one of the possible things that happened in this dude's life. He eventually pivots into becoming a socialite in society and works his way up. And then somewhere along the way, he meets Paul. He's introduced to Jesus. He accepts Christ. And then God uses this earthly, worldly authority and influence in order to bring about his will in the city of Corinth.
Amen.
So freaking cool, dude. Yeah. So that's an amazing model of ministry, to say we go into the city and we reach lost people. They're added to our numbers, and then we don't just tell them, hey man, keep the politics at home. No, we are going to allow God to leverage those positions and those things in order to give us favor with people in the city so that we can keep doing the work of ministry.
See?
So I thought that would be a cool story. Story to start off the episode with, because that's something that was like really encouraging to my spirit. Like, this isn't some made up fairy tale. There's the guy's name. It's in the stone. And wow, to connect all of this, what a great testimony. And so anyway, I told you I would tell you more about Erastus. So that's the story of Erastus. Maybe,
that's a good story.
Maybe the story of Erastus. Some of that stuff we know for sure. Some of it is like speculation. But
maybe in the future we have a long lost descendant from Erastus. And we'll interview him.
Somebody is a descendant.
We will interview
Yeah.
the most recent descendant
Yep.
of Sexy Man.
Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome to the Dumb Saints podcast.
They're like, oh, they are dumb.
Yeah. So we had an awesome conversation on this last episode, and we're just going to continue it because there's so much more that we wanted to say. We barely even scratched the surface, I think, in a lot of the complaints and conversations that people are having. So we thought we should probably jump more into it. Yeah. So what we're discussing is the different models of ministry in modern churches. Yeah. In particular, you have like the small church and the mega church.
Mm-hmm. Why does not the middle church get their own category?
I think because the middle church is either going to dwindle into a small church someday because of the way they do things, or it'll grow into a mega church someday because of the way they do things.
But it's going to, like, to the middle church, there's always going to be a smaller church and a bigger church.
Yeah.
To the mega church, it's going to be rare that some mega churches are going to find a church bigger than themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit like 50,000, you are the largest church in America, which is not that big when you consider how many people are going to hell.
And then the small church, they're always going to view everyone as a big church.
Yeah, man. So, and that's a little dangerous thing, the danger of comparison.
If we're talking about perspective and comparison.
So the last episode, I was thinking about it today, and we were pretty critical of like some of the proponents of like churches should only ever be small, and if they get too big, then that's no longer the biblical model. I think we gave some pretty good biblical evidence to say that's not the case.
Yeah.
That the biblical model for church is not based on size, but if you do what they were doing in modern times, it's going to be big.
It should be contagious.
I thought about this as well. Well, to be clear, we obviously are on staff at a fairly large church. Now, we're not the largest church in our area.
No.
But we are far from small.
Yeah.
And I believe, according to statistics, we would be in the top 1% of churches if you are measuring by weekly attendance.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are a large church. Many people have accused us of being a mega church, or at least the way that we do things are the way other mega churches do things.
Yeah.
So we're biased. Like, we are biased for sure. I wouldn't do this if I didn't think this was the best way to do it. And if you're on staff at a church and the way that they're doing things are not the best way to do it, and now it's different if God has called you to be there and you are adding value in some way that is worth you being there, that's fine. But if you have a pastor who doesn't have a lot of vision, man, I would hate to be in a place where my vision is bigger than my pastor's vision.
Ooh.
You'll never get that here under our pastor. So at Discover Life Church with our pastor, Pastor Ken, I mean, dude, I've never met anybody. His vision is like too big. You know, you got to he surrounds himself with people that can reel him in and bring him down to earth and say, hey, listen, you want to take over the world. Let's do this first, one step at a time. And he has some really smart people around him. So I've never out-visioned Pastor Ken or out-dreamed my pastor. But I could see how that would be really difficult if that was the case. And so we are biased. But I don't care, dude. It's because I think it's the best way. And listen, maybe someday we'll bring somebody in who's like, small churches are the best, and this is why. I think there's great things that come from all the different church models if it's a healthy church. But, dude, if you are using the church in Acts as like the end-all, be-all, bro, they didn't even have electricity back then. So it is really unfair to use that as the like black and white how to do church model. Because they didn't even have air condition. They couldn't even meet when it was dark out because there was no, they used a lamp with oil, but there was no electricity. There was no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, totally different society. They did not have gas-powered engines and vehicles and cars. Someone could drive 45 minutes to church, and that can be their church.
Yeah.
You could not do that back in those in the times of Acts.
Yeah. So to use that
or Corinth. So I think it's a really unfair thing to only use that. Now, those are the critiques of the last episode are like, this is the biblical critique of large church, small church. Let's talk about the modern critiques.
Yeah.
The theological debates that come in when you're dealing with technology and production. And large churches today, many of the critiques are, how are they spending their money?
Yeah.
And those sorts of things. And dude, I have a treasure trove of just straight up
ammunition.
No, I was gonna say just idiots being stupid on social media.
Okay.
So I sent you a couple clips.
Yeah, you did.
And I'll describe them. But while I'm pulling that up, is there anything that you think would be helpful for us to kind of kick this thing off?
Well, I think, like you said, the last time we had this conversation, we felt at some parts of the conversation maybe we got too critical.
Yeah.
But when I do look back at small church, and maybe it's mindset and approach.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely still some of that in me,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Like the good stuff, you
Yeah,
mean?
like the good
Yeah.
stuff of it, of like being intentional in the lobby,
Yeah.
like seeing the new face.
Yeah.
In a small church, it's obviously easier just to recognize a new family.
Mm-hmm.
But here at Discover Life Church, after the 8:15, Pastor Ken is usually at the door,
Yeah.
greeting people. Do you greet people as you leave? Like,
He greets people as they leave, but it's also when the next
Yeah.
service is
Yeah.
starting, so people are
but
coming
usually
and
I
going.
stand at the other door,
Yeah.
and I just kind of say what's up to people as they come in.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is we're still very intentional of the new faces that come in,
Yeah.
because we're intentional of the relationships we already have
100%.
in this church. And when we do our small group semesters throughout the year, you should be at least inviting new people to your small groups, or maybe
Yeah.
joining a small group, because you can also fall into the deception of, hey, I am part of a big church, but I do miss that small church feel. So this small group,
Yeah.
like, this is just going to be our group.
Yeah.
And then you get super cliquey in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, there's that family, and you're trying to, maybe you have the same age kids, so you're like, hey, do you want to go grab brunch after and like let the kids hang out? Do you want to hit the park? And it's like, no, we already have our friends.
Mm-hmm.
There is those people
Yeah.
in any type of church.
Yeah.
But as you go into kind of your treasure trove
Mm-hmm.
of people, the problem is there's people who represent big church bad, and there's people who represent small church bad,
100%.
and altogether there's people who just represent the capital C church very poorly.
Yeah.
And that puts us in a position to even start conversations like this, because we both have friends who have heard someone's bad representation.
Yeah.
And a part of us is our hope that, hey, as you're driving on an hour back from Orlando, or maybe you download this podcast and you have a flight or whatever it is, you're in between lunch breaks, and you're popping this in just to clear some things up.
Yeah.
We want, and that's why we want to follow through with the conversation.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a lot of things that people would assume large churches don't do, and it's actually small churches that usually don't. I'll give an example. If you are a first-time guest at a large church, there is a high chance you're getting a phone call within the first or second day that you
Yeah.
visited. Because large churches, part of the reason why they got large is because they were good at connecting with people. If you showed up to church, you weren't slipping through the cracks. And the larger you get, the harder that is, so you become even more intentional.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that anybody that showed up to my church,
They
that
felt
they
seen.
know that we were happy to have them,
Yeah.
and we asked them, how was your time? If you're at a small church, I mean, I have consulted with pastors of much smaller congregations, and it is like mind-blowing for them to hear how we connect
Some
with
of our
first-time
systems
guests.
that,
Which I'm like, you're surprised why they're not coming back, or
Well,
you're
dude,
surprised like why you're not growing?
we went on a trip recently, and we had some people who maybe have come from smaller church.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the problem with when you come from something like that and they're so holding on tight to it,
Mm-hmm.
the conversations they have are not really fruitful. So I think some of them saw kind of some of the conversations we were having at different tables, different conversations of how intentional we're like, hey, how are we going to reach this group of people? How are we like, and we're having these conversations. It really opened up some of the people in our team's eyes to like, oh, this doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Also, like, this didn't just happen. Like, yes, God breathed on it, God blessed it, God called Pastor Ken, God called us to be a part of what's going on here.
Yeah.
But this didn't just happen.
No.
Me, you, Austin, Dave, we're all doing so much work during the week to make sure that the weekend looks like this easy ministry thing.
Yeah, people think it's
But they don't realize 50, 60 hours just went into a 77-minute experience.
Yeah. And it's not just the experience, because like most of my work is, well, I would say a lot of my work is Sunday focused because I'm over worship. And basically the worship experience that you're seeing when you attend a service, I'm overseeing all of that aside from the like kids' first impressions, all that. But like you sitting in a seat that service.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff I do is geared towards Sunday. But even me, my role is way heavier on the people side, the ministering to people. Another thing that, which, hold on, people would be critical to hear, wait, they're sitting in tables and thinking about how are we going to reach these people?
Dude.
Like, are they really just trying to reach out? Yes.
Yeah.
There's too many people going to hell for us to not be intentional about how to reach their demographic.
If you're gonna name a book Numbers, it's got to mean at some point numbers are important.
Yes.
In some variation.
They say, "Oh, are you all about the numbers, sir?" When one number is one soul that's raised from eternal spiritual death into spiritual life, you better freaking believe I'm going to celebrate every single number. Yeah. And it's such a pharisaical way to be critical of it, because normally when you're saying that, you don't have big numbers. So you're being critical of the churches who are doing more, or that they're reaching more people. And really, I think the devil is twisting you into being critical of them instead of saying, hey, let's do our best to make sure there's a big, huge dent taken out of the attendance that was on their way, not destined, on their way to hell. We took them out. We freaking made sure that they went to heaven. Like, dude.
People forget and think, like, not me. I'm not being critical. I'm not gossiping about that church. But it says in John 13:2, that Satan planted the betrayal in Judas's heart.
Yeah.
So if he did it in Judas's heart, who was close to Jesus, walking with Jesus, walking with disciples, for you to not think that Satan can't plant this jealous spirit, this betrayal, church hurt spirit, this critical, I know better spirit.
Yeah.
And if you think you're above that, dude, take a look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Not you.
I know.
But person.
Yeah.
What are your last 6 Facebook posts saying? When you're talking to someone and you're like, hey, are you still going to that? We'll just use our church, because I have had friends who've left the church. And you hear people, you still going to that .tv church? This is like a couple years ago that people would say this, but it was true.
Yeah.
You still going to that .tv church?
Yeah.
Like some of the names our churches have been inherited over the time. Like you go to that Conversion Factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they are they trying to diss us?
They say that's
Are they trying to diss us?
That's a great front door church.
Yeah.
And I love what Pastor Ken said. Like, what other kind of church am I supposed to be?
A secret back door with the password church?
Yeah. What the freak kind of church? Like,
Sleepy Hollow.
That just it's really frustrating. So those same people who are critical of that stuff, bro, you know what else they don't realize? They think, oh, that big church. I literally got a text message. We send some text messages out like, hey, don't forget, first Wednesday's happening this month, whatever.
Yeah.
If you give us your phone number, we'll send you messages, reminder, encouragements, whatever. Yeah. Well, we send a message out. One of the replies comes back, and it says, I don't even remember what the message is about. Maybe one of our services coming up. The person said, why don't you go and visit somebody in the hospital? And instead of whatever it was that we were promoting. And I replied.
Oh, good. I'm glad you did.
I knew who this person was.
Oh, that's even
somebody
better.
Who was in our church but is not anymore.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason just decided to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm a Texas person. Because what he doesn't know is we literally visit people in the hospital.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. Sorry, we don't put it on our Instagram story.
Bro.
Sorry, we don't put it on our Facebook page.
Now, if we don't know you're in the hospital, then we can't visit you because no one told us.
We're not psychic.
But at the second that we know someone is in the hospital,
we're making moves.
Not only will a random person visit you, no. Right now, at the moment, one of our pastoral team, a pastor, will go and visit you every single day that you're in there. Unless something freak happens, you'll get a phone call or a text message. But like, we are intentional about going to visit people in the hospital, and he is going, that big church, they don't minister to people. And then he says, why don't you go visit the people in the hospital? And here's what I found out. He had a loved one in the hospital, and we didn't know about it. So when I know that, I'm like, bro, I'll be there. Well, dude, it was Christmas Eve, and I was like, I'm coming to see this person. I'm going.
Yeah.
Because, dude, I'm gonna practice what I preach.
Yeah.
Listen, I understood there was a place of hurt, and I was willing to go and do that.
Yeah.
he ends up saying, listen, it's Christmas Eve. I understand. Just try and visit later this week. And I think she ended up getting out of the hospital. So it worked out. But
Amen.
the issue is people come forward with these critiques and they don't realize that, like, no, we know that when you grow large, there are some areas that you're going to have to work harder at. And we beef those areas up.
Yeah.
We beef up. That's why we're intentional about small groups. It's why we're intentional about first-time guests. It's why we're intentional about serving. It's why we're intentional about hospital visitation and pastoral care, all that stuff. So,
it's a perfect segue to what you were about to get into.
yes, because these videos, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It's freaking hilarious because
have my favorite one right here.
I feel bad for these guys.
I have my favorite one here. Can I show the camera the video, or should I not do that?
Let me see which
it's
one.
This one.
Just describe what it is.
So it's a big church, like small stadium seating. You know, that already turns people off.
Bro, I think we should say who it is.
No.
Because the church isn't doing anything wrong. No, because you guys should follow this dude. We freaking love him. That's Shep.
Oh, the content.
So Steven Shepard.
Yeah.
So Steven Shepard is one of the production leads at Elevation Church. He's been on staff at multiple large churches.
And he's been giving a inside and behind the scenes
so
look
on his social media. He's
like.
Posting like, "Hey, look what my team is doing." I love the way he encourages his team.
This is worship.
Yes.
This is just as effective worship as the person who's going ham on the drums.
So Elevation gets freaking
dude, they get
shredded,
they get destroyed in the comment section.
Any large church I see it, but I think Elevation is just because their influence is so large, they attract this critique.
And let's pause real quick.
Okay.
We have Elevation in our city.
Yeah.
We love Elevation.
Dude.
So much. So we're going to keep having this conversation, but
we admire a lot of the things that Elevation does, and the conversation is not in critique of Elevation, it's in critique of all the freaking
comments of the thumb warriors.
Yeah, so
the thumb thugs.
So Steven Shepard posts a video of it's like a
volunteer.
It's like a person running a camera rig, and it's a jib, which is like kind of like that crane thing.
Yeah, so you gotta operate it.
Now there's hundreds of thousands of people who will watch online and watch on TV, and they will hear the message that's being preached from that guy running the camera.
Yeah.
That is a win.
Yeah.
There's the room that they have only seats a few thousand, 5,000. Maybe it's huge and it's 10,000. Well, their reach from those cameras is way freaking bigger.
Yeah.
Jesus preached on a mountaintop. I think if Jesus was given the opportunity to go live on TV or to go live on Facebook or live on Instagram with his message, he would do it.
If he would have just had a megaphone.
Yeah.
And people hate the megaphone guy.
And he didn't even have that.
Jesus would have been the megaphone guy real quick.
I think he was trying to make sure that people who wanted to hear it could hear it.
Yeah.
So if there was this option, I think he would do it.
I mean, we know he does. We see Zacchaeus, who's so curious he gets in a tree. He goes and has lunch with Zacchaeus.
There was too many people,
Yeah.
so the disciples, Jesus was put in a boat and rowed out to the sea, and it's like a cove.
Yeah.
So it's like this natural amphitheater where he's on the boat in the water.
The water's getting
and
good
he can
acoustics.
speak. Yeah, so he can speak, and everyone on the hillside surrounding this little alcove in the shoreline can hear what he's saying. So that was a conscious decision to say, I want as many people as possible.
Yeah.
The sermon is on a mount. Like he's going to places that are where large groups of people can hear.
Dude, the biggest public display of his love is on the Mountain of Skull.
Yeah.
So everyone can see the crucifixion.
How many people did he feed?
Dude.
When he was when there was the loaves and the fish, there was two times in the Bible that he multiplied the loaves and fish, I believe. But the famous one that we all know is he fed 5,000.
Five bands.
Now
5 stacks.
Many people, I believe, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but they only counted men back then, so that did not include women and children. So if it says 5,000,
a
lot of biblical theologians believe that was not the total
At minimum,
number.
it was probably like 12.
Right.
1,000.
That's a freaking mega church, bro.
Yeah.
Now people are like, well, you're not Jesus. Yeah, but it's the same message. We're preaching the same message. So This guy is on the camera. He's on the jib. He's running it. He's doing a great job. And it says, and this is also what I love about Shep. He's being honest with himself. Go to it, because my phone is being stupid. It keeps opening it up in Safari instead of
You want the
Facebook.
comments?
So he puts on this video. He says, production, we want to create a distraction-free environment. And then it says also production.
Yeah.
And it's him moving a jib around. So he doesn't take himself too seriously.
He's
And I like that.
He's a jokester.
Now, here we go. First comment. This isn't church. Okay. Next comment. This place is why all churches should be taxed like the businesses they are.
Ooh, people.
Next comment. At what point does your service become a production and not a worship service? Then, defund mega churches. Tax churches. Another comment. Church in quotation marks. Yeah. Bro, it is just...
There's hundreds of these comments. There's hundreds of thousands of these comments on hundreds of thousands of churches across the globe.
There was another one I sent you from a guy. I felt bad for this dude because I know
the drum one. Did you go back to the message?
I just went to it.
Oh, you opened it. I thought you needed help getting to it.
I just went to it.
Okay.
So
I forget you have an iPhone and are tech savvy.
The video is a guy playing drums and he's showing his in-ear mix,
yeah,
which has a click and it also has the music.
I just love this too. People are getting an inside look. Like social media has become this thing where you get to get an inside look.
Yep.
Of what's going on.
And he's showing a little mistake that was made.
Yeah.
And so he's just showing it. It's
what?
Real quick.
You're not fully excellent for the Lord. Mistakes happen on Sunday.
Yeah. So, and he hashtags like worship drummer anyway. The comments on here, I feel bad for this guy. The comments. When did musicians become too reliable on technology? What happened to the ear? This one's interesting. You're getting both people critiquing the fact that he's using a click track, yeah, and also people critiquing the fact that churches would use click tracks. Yeah. Listen, this is ridiculous. All these bands are so used to clicks, in-ears, iPads, teleprompters, guide tracks, sequencing, extra tracks with piped-in pre-recorded extra vocals and instruments, all synced to the lights and video screens, etc. The whole thing is fake. One little thing goes wrong and it's over. Learn to play without all the tech. Be real. Okay, listen, PJ.
Learn to play.
Learn to play without all the tech. I'm going to be so freaking just blunt right now.
To the commenter?
To you, PJ, I'm telling you, it is way harder to play with the tech than without it. This guy, I found most of the guys who critique the dudes playing to a click can play to a click track. Okay?
What is a metronome?
Yeah.
What is this?
He's like, I am the metronome. It just feels unnatural.
Let me get back on time. Wait, is it coming around?
Yeah.
Yeah, dang.
No, dude, they can't. And it is so much more. It takes such a higher level of skill and professionalism and excellence. Yeah. So now people will critique. What is the line here between, like right here, how do y'all focus on worship when you have all that extracurricular BS in your earpiece to hide the fact that you don't know the music well enough to perform it with a band on stage?
Dude.
Hey, do you know what's funny? If you look at churches that don't use click tracks, most of them have music stands on stage. Yeah. These bands with click tracks have no music stands.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so there's so much hypocrisy in it. It gets me going. I'm going to hop on one of these other ones because
it's going to grind your gears.
Steven Shepard's videos, sometimes I message him because I'm like, bro, your comments are...
Did you see Instagram user 646 say that he hates your family because
Here we go.
of you talking about lenses?
So now it's a video of him. This is interesting, which is a whole other conversation in and of itself. He's using AI tracking to operate the camera to move to follow the person speaking.
Yes. Dude, Jesus would have loved an AI drone.
And they're just testing it.
He would have loved it.
They're testing it. They're not. I don't think they're using it yet. It's still got some kinks they're working out. And he's posting it, and it says, "Think AI could direct live." Like he just posts a question. Yeah. This is what it says. One of the comments. Not sure, but I hope AI can dismantle fake churches like yours. Then it says, yup, upgraded to AI. Can't feed the poor this month. Here. Tithe 10% so we can spend hundreds of thousands on video equipment and construction.
Oh, wow. What is flowing from these people's hearts?
Dude, lot of nice tax-free you have there. Then this one is kind of funny. Can you imagine AI detecting a whole celestial multitude of angels while recording in the middle of the service? Like,
thank God for those people.
but he's just going, how many, this one we get all the time. How many meals could have been bought for less fortunate people with how much AI camera tracking software costs?
Dude, let's pivot.
You want to talk about that?
I want to talk about
All right,
that.
look up this scripture. Look up the scripture where Judas says the same thing. When you do that, hey, Mary Magdalene. This is what happens. This is the context of it. Mary Magdalene takes the alabaster and she washes Jesus' feet with it. This is expensive perfume. It's like people's retirement, right?
Yeah.
It's like taking all the stocks and freaking using them. And what is she using them on, bro? She's not feeding any poor people. She's not fueling their ministry.
Feet.
She's putting up an LED screen. She's freaking putting in a new lighting system. She's worshiping God with what she has. If you are a lighting person or in a production realm, you worship God with your videography skills or your photography skills, right? Do you know what happens, bro? One of the disciples says, we could be using this money to feed poor. Look at this lady wasting the resources of the kingdom. Hey, which disciple was it that was saying that?
Judas.
Judas. So
you can read it. It's right there.
So to that commenter who says, how many poor people could have been fed? Okay, Judas, let's see what Jesus says about that. When the disciples saw it, they were indignant. Why this waste, they asked. This might have been sold to a great deal and given to the poor. Judas criticizes Mary. Oh, wait.
No, this one. That's what you want.
Then one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was about to betray him, said, why wasn't this perfume sold? Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is
the same
what you were
story
talking
is
about.
told in Matthew.
Yeah, it's
And in Matthew, it says the disciples. But in
Touchscreen.
John, it actually says which disciple it was saying it. And it was freaking
doubles
Judas. Judas Iscariot, who was about to betray him, said, why wasn't this perfume sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? I mean, dude, it is exact. It is. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
These people don't even
just
know.
gave a live
There's
comment.
a perfect example of
Live
this
comment.
in Scripture. He didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. Now, these people, are they saying it because they care about the poor? Or because they care about... No. They're being critical of something else.
Yeah.
Has that person fed the poor lately? Maybe they have. If they have, you can comment that.
Yeah.
How much have you given to the poor?
Yeah.
If you have given zero amount, well, you have a flat screen TV. How many people could have you have fed with that TV?
You just bought the new Call of Duty.
Oh, you have a Netflix subscription? Did you know that you can pay $20 and feed an orphan if you pay $20 every month for the rest of their life?
Yeah.
Oh, well, how many orphans could you have? No, you still have Netflix.
They want a point.
Okay?
Criticize.
You don't actually care about the poor when you're saying that. Now, what's interesting, what was Jesus' response? Can we see the next scripture? Oh, man, I could see if I was...
Which one do you want?
If
I'll
you were
pull
the
up the Bible app. You want this one or this one?
let's see what John 12 says. If I was a disciple, this would really, really confuse me for a second because it's such a Pharisaical thing to be saying, we could have fed the poor.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus, admiring this woman who is giving this great sacrifice, says this, which would have blown their religious minds.
And here is your...
What does it say?
This is the NSB, so that's the version you like.
Therefore, Jesus said, leave her alone, let her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. Jesus says, in other translations, it says, the poor will always be among you.
Yeah.
Which means the needs of meeting the poor. Really, he was making a point. Judas, you don't actually care about the poor, so shut up.
Yeah.
That's what he was really doing, okay? But there is this truth that Jesus gives us that, dude, the poor are always going to be there.
No matter how many times you help.
Exactly.
That mindset, that
and
victim
anytime
mindset.
somebody says that, it's crazy because it's a direct callback. The disciples already made the same mistake, said it directly to Jesus, and Jesus put them in their place by saying, the poor are always going to be among you.
Yeah.
So this is like the equivalent of what they would say. Like, when we are using all of this technology in order to really what we're trying to, especially for
push the gospel,
especially for a church like Elevation, who they're critiquing, is you have to have that lighting and you have to have those cameras in order to create a production that will be relevant in the news feed as people are scrolling, or on the TV channel as they as they skim back and forth.
Because if it's like all pixelated, then all of a sudden it's going to be like, where's your excellence and reverence for what you're like? No matter, there's always going to be some dumb thing said.
Every single
did they record this on an iPhone?
Why would we let the devil? Why would we let the devil and the world monopolize on technology? Why would we say no? They can use it for entertainment.
We'll use film.
They can use it for entertainment. They can use it for education. But we draw the line. Yeah. Because if we use those things for the gospel, we're watering down the message. No, could it not be amplifying it? Could it not be propelling it? Could it not? Okay, so let me see another one. Give me your phone, because these comments, that was good, because that comment just allowed us to jump right in. This dude right here, he said, "Good old days when the gospel was actually preached before all that prosperity." So he's probably critiquing the message of Elevation. It says, when the technology is better than the theology. This comment I like. It says, these folks just log on to complain. Yeah, 100%.
Wonder how the notifications turned on.
Wonder how much his suit costs. Mega church, and it's a garbage can. Then it says, too bad he has listened to the bad theology. All of that to record a heretic. Bro, dude. Verdict is a heretical false teacher. The government needs to audit Elevation Church. I mean, bro,
people it starts this just snowball effect.
Let's hear what he's saying in this video. Let's see what he
So I'm going to fight every single one of you that says, man, the good old days of Elevation Church. Back when we used to stay.
There's nothing he says.
Yeah, they just took that.
They're taking other videos that they've seen out of context, and they're taking other things that they've seen and what they've heard about Stephen Furtick. I guarantee you, half those people who call him a heretic, they haven't watched one single sermon start to finish.
Well, that's the thing.
They've watched a few clips, and I freaking hate that.
These sound bites and clickbait, people form their entire opinion on a person.
Yep.
It happens here. It happens tons of places.
It's gonna happen.
They see an Instagram
video
post
and this podcast. I'm sure
they see an Instagram post of some young adults using a trendy song to invite people, and all of a sudden it's like, can't you just like do an overnight vigil and seek the face of God instead of doing a TikTok dance? It's just like, hey, Karen, please,
Well, this is my biggest gripe with it all, mainly because I bet you you took an audit of those social media accounts and go to the person behind them that's typing those things. I'm sure they're probably not plugged into a church.
Yeah, and if they are, it's
not
a very life-giving.
It's just amazing, because this is what it is. There's a lot of church hurt, and these people are projecting that as some sort of righteousness, and it's like, no, you're for whatever reason, somebody did something to you.
You're just
church
soft.
hurts you. I mean, one of those accounts, I clicked on it, and it said, I am an atheist fighting against religious organizations. So that whole entire account was dedicated to basically believed that God is damaging to society. The idea of God is damaging to society. That's a hurt person. That person has been hurt. I don't know what story happened. I don't know what some terrible, messed up Christian did to them, or what some church happened. But I guarantee you, they didn't just come to that conclusion based on logic and philosophy alone. There is always some story behind it. So this is people projecting this kind of church hurt. And I think that's what most of the critique is. But the problem is the world is looking in from the outside.
Yeah,
This person is saying,
that's a key point.
this is what happens, dude. Shep is not just followed by Christian people. He's also followed by production professionals.
Yeah.
These production professionals see, oh, dang, this church that this guy is running in, they're testing out an AI software that I'm also looking into testing out. And the algorithm connects Shep's stuff, which is Christian, but it's AV, it's audiovisual. They're going to start showing his things to people who do not, they're running sound at South by Southwest and,
Just the way the
music
algorithm
festivals
works and the scroll.
Right. Guess what? Those are the people that we want to reach with the gospel. And they click that video and they're used to looking at it and seeing audiovisual people kind of joking with each other or, saying, dude, I would never do that. Or, back in the day, I would do this. And that's what they expect the world to do. When they go and they see these Christians freaking doing this, bro, what did Jesus say? This is how you know. This is how the world will know you are my disciples, by how you have love one for another.
Yeah. Dude, and we know.
You don't see that.
And the thing is, we know Shep.
Yeah.
So those same people who reach out and start asking questions, Shep is going to be the perfect model citizen he is.
Listen, I'm not best friends with him.
No.
I don't know what his whole life is. I've had a few conversations with him, but I followed him on social media. He's a funny guy. I believe that he legitimately loves Jesus, and the only reason why he's involved in production would be because he knows that whatever he contributes to it is helping to propel the message.
Yeah.
But, I don't know all the details of his life and everything, but I see these freaking videos, dude, and I just see him getting... And they're not, technically they are, they're tearing him up because he's a part of this church, and by them critiquing that, they're critiquing him. But
He's the account holder. It's his page.
we have a philosophy on the model of church, and now we've talked about why I think it's stupid that people act that way. But let's clarify why we do it the way that we do it. We will do anything short of sin to reach people with the gospel. I don't know how desperate you are to reach your friends with the kingdom, but if it means that the video is live streamed on Facebook for them to hear the message, and then it might soften their heart in some way or make them get a little sneak peek into the church and they go, wow, this isn't what I thought it was. Maybe I can try it out. Would you then be okay with a church dropping $5,000 on a camera rig? Then is it worth it? How desperate are you?
Yeah. If it's your son who you raised up in a way, but unfortunately he's just making his own decisions.
Yeah.
He's far.
Yeah.
You've been praying for him.
Now,
You've been praying for him. All of a sudden, he is into this scene, right? Yeah. He's thinking about going to Full Sail. He's just like,
yeah.
Wouldn't you be so blessed, mom or dad, that he decides to stroll in because a friend invited him?
Yeah.
Because that same friend recently got their life changed.
Right.
And now they're going and inviting.
Yeah.
And they come, and the vibe.
Yep.
Because let's think of the unbeliever. When they come in, they're not going, oh, I feel the Spirit of God.
Yep.
I feel the atmosphere. No, they're checking vibes.
Yep.
Okay, this is cool. This is chill.
Yep.
People, okay, white, black, okay, all right, well, cool lights. Oh, shoot. Dude, that guy's getting on the bait. If these are all tools that we can usher in people to, at the end, which our pastor does a great job, hey, towards the end of this conversation today, you're going to have an opportunity to respond.
Yeah.
Because none of this matters unless you have a relationship.
Exactly.
If we can do everything we can to make sure lost people can find life, we're going to do it. We do it.
I can't quantify.
God did.
Yeah, amen. I can't quantify how people think that having lights, moving on stage, and an excellent worship experience is more distracting than letting whoever the heck you want up on stage with an acoustic guitar, and they
bare
have not
feet.
prepared, and they have no concept of excellence for ushering in the presence of God. Bro, maybe it's because I'm a musician, but I think this is probably true for most people. If I show up to a small church, there's a small group of people in the room, it can still be excellent. But if I see music stands on stage with chord charts, with a guitarist staring at the chord chart playing, who that guy is probably like, we don't use click tracks. We get down back to the heart of worship. We're not about all those lights and and haze and fog, right? And he's staring at his chord chart the whole time.
He's not engaged with one person.
And then there's this drummer who is playing, and this is what happens. Because you don't put an emphasis on having a level of excellence when it comes to worshiping the creator of the universe. You're like, well, we don't want to distract from the attitude behind it. No, the attitude is that he gets our best.
Yeah.
Every resources we have, we will throw back into praising him, magnifying him, glorifying him. Not at the expense of reaching people, but actually in order to propel the effectiveness of our message. Okay? If you have no concept of that, you will only attract people who also don't care about that.
Yeah.
So you won't have great musicians. You won't have great worship leaders who carry themselves in a way that says, I believe that God deserves my best.
Yeah.
Because it's an afterthought for you and your ministry, so it's going to be an afterthought for them, and you often treat it. Now, here's what I think happens. Smaller churches don't have the resources. And it is a coping mechanism to say that, like, well, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. That's all, man, all those haze. And I mean, dude, it could be a church with a smaller congregation, and they just need to make sure that the power stays on, that the bills are paid, that the property taxes are paid. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to take care of operating costs. And so, no, they can't afford the haze machine, and it wouldn't make sense for them to buy a bunch of fancy lights. Here's why, dude. If you think that fancy lights grow churches, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one thing that's confusing to me, because people go, man, they just want to entertain people. And they think that the lights came first, and that's why they grew to 3,000. No, dude. You can only afford that stuff because you attract people, because of the community that you build and the message that you're preaching. Isn't it weird if you preach the gospel the way Jesus preached it, thousands of people show up and they want to hear it, and then your resources grow? Now, if you don't have the resources to do it, you would be a bad steward to buy an LED screen for your church. So this is the opposite side. I'm going to critique the other side. Yeah. Don't you dare buy an LED wall for your church if you're not first making sure that the electricity is going to come on that month, or even beyond that. Let's say your kids' ministry is more important than your LED wall.
Yeah.
I personally believe that. I think that if you put resources towards making sure that the kids are discipled, you'll see a better return on your growth, on your investment.
They'd put a dope screen.
Than if you
with
put
words
lights
on it,
and haze.
with words and moving pictures.
It's just weird because it's almost contradictory to think that, like, they're spending all that money on that stuff instead of investing in discipling people. And it's like, no, we have that stuff because we invested in discipling people.
Yeah.
So, but we have a high level of excellence because if the devil can have the Super Bowl, we're going to freaking give God the Super Bowl every single Sunday.
Amen. Dude, I mean, we say this thing, right? It's always Easter. Every Sunday's Easter.
Right.
So we don't just, when it comes to Easter in a couple weeks, which is coming up, we don't just all of a sudden, no, we are that way every Sunday because people are getting saved every Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, Easter, yes, more people tend to come to church for the first time or the first time in a long time on Easter because everybody needs that Instagram picture. Yeah. Everybody needs to make sure that everyone, it makes us feel good.
Yep.
Hey, we were there. We heard the story. We were reminded.
Yep.
We were reminded of what he did.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for what you did so I can keep doing what I'm doing. We check the box. We're good. this will get us to Christmas when I get to hear that story. I love that story of the Christmas Jesus.
It's a tradition.
Christmas
it's our family
Jesus.
tradition.
Christmas Jesus is my second version of Jesus. My favorite version is Easter Jesus, and then third is Valentine's Day Jesus. Like we just have these, what's the movie? Talladega Nights.
I
He's
only
like,
watch
when he's
Christian
praying,
movies, so
I'm
I don't
sure
know.
you've only but he's like, hey, can you pray? He's like, well, when I like to think of Jesus, I like to think of him in a little tuxedo shirt.
Yeah, and doesn't he say, Lord, baby Jesus?
Yeah,
Is this
literally.
Baby Jesus.
But we do that. We have this version of Jesus that works for the season we're in. Because if you are the small church and your pastor has been in the Word, right? Because this sometimes is not even the pastor. It is the people in the church who critique. It is not the pastor, because usually the pastor, if he is committed to a life-giving church, he's going to seek the bigger church. He's going to ask some questions. So it's really the pastor.
He's fighting battles every day
Yes.
trying to get the congregation to hop on board with where he believes God has taken them. That's usually what's happening.
But what happens is we just end up doing such a disservice to all the work that your pastor's done. He's spending so much time studying for a 35-minute teaching he's going to give to make sure that he can effectively do what God wants him to do that Sunday.
Right.
But now I'm saying, hey, all of a sudden you guys recorded it, or you guys set up a phone, you guys went live, and that message reached some people.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden next week you had 50 guests.
Yeah.
And it just grew. All of a sudden that narrative before starts to change. Because now all of a sudden your church of 68 people in a summer just became a church of 368. What now?
All these people are going, I can't even find a parking spot.
Yeah.
Like, wait, that
We've been praying for send the lost. Like we complain about what we're praying for.
I say, Lord, send us people that we pray, Lord, that you would save
But don't
lives.
let them take my parking
Now
spot.
they come in.
But I don't want to park in overflow.
Listen, they come in and they're hungover.
Yeah.
They smell like vomit. They're maybe coming down off of a drug binge.
Mm-hmm.
And some guy has been out all night sleeping in the heat. And he knows if I go to church, I'll be in the AC.
Yeah.
So
I'll get a
he
free cup of coffee. Because that
gets a
church
free
gives
cup of
free
coffee.
coffee.
He shows up. You've been saying, God, send us people. And you're like, well, not those people.
Yeah. Not that guy, God.
Oh, you have a
I drive by that guy and look the other way every day,
bro.
God. I don't
I'm
want to
about
see him
to-
in my church.
I bet that one doesn't bother people. They're like, oh, poor people. No, we should love poor people. A lesbian couple comes in and sits in your pews. They're not believers. You talk to them. Maybe they're not believers. They're just looking for a spiritual community. They're trying to seek something. Maybe they're like, man, we're building a family together. That's what they're thinking. And so like we
want to raise our kids.
They have good morals, you know, and so they want to.
They're bought into this whole.
And they show up and they're like, are you still going to be able to teach them about Jesus the same way that you would a businessman with his wife and nice looking, clean cut
blue-eyed
family
children
that they showed up in church clothes?
Honestly, because you're blonde and blue-eyed.
All right, so we're saying, and I use that example because for decades, no, hundreds of years, like maybe even 2,000 years, could have been 2,000 years, like homosexuals have been the whipping post for Christianity.
Yeah.
Pastor Ken has said that, and I latch on to that. So true, bro. For whatever reason, bro, you struggle with having an affair, adultery. That's a different category. Oh, you struggle with gluttony. That's a different category. Lying, different category. Gossip, all day, dude. Those things we can put up with.
Yeah. We can walk through that.
But homosexuality is like,
dude. Yeah.
So jacked up. So that's one of the things is a lot of smaller churches stay small because the congregation is their hearts not they're still wrapping their heads around what does it really look like to reach lost people. We don't have, if you're in a large church, that's not something that you're having to, that means you've already got to that point. You're not having to explain to people why it's important to open your doors to the community and invite them in. regardless of what they look like. Make them all feel welcome. We don't care what they look like. We don't care what they sound like. Dude, one time I'm in the lobby. This guy came to the altar to accept Christ. He prays the prayer with Pastor Ken, and then he gets sent to the next steps room. They give him a Bible. They tell him how to join a small group, and then somebody's going to call him that week and help him on his journey. I see him in the lobby, and I go up to him, and I say, hey, man, I saw that you went down, congratulations. I'm so proud of you, bro. I know this wasn't an easy decision, but I believe God's working in your life. And we're talking, and he goes, man, were you that singer up there up on stage? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, man, you can effing sing. But he didn't say F. He said the word.
He said the word.
He
said the word.
There's like families with kids like walking around us.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them heard us. But even if they did, maybe if they were a first-time guest, they'd be going, what kind of church is this? Yeah. But if it was one of our families in our church, nobody would bat an eye.
Yeah.
Maybe they tell their kid like, hey.
Yeah.
Their kid like, Mommy, that's
we don't
man
use that
said the F word. Yeah. Say, yeah, but not everybody's perfect. Growing people change. This man's still growing. Yeah. So, but this guy says the F word. I just started laughing, dude. I started laughing, and he's like, bro, I'm sorry. I was like, dude, it's not that I've never heard the F word before, but the way he said it, and then he didn't say sing. He said, you can sing. It was just so funny, dude. And so then he's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I said, bro, it's okay, man. Yeah. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And then I had a moment where I clarified with him, if you thought that you were going to pray this prayer and all of your sin, like all of the urges to sin are going to go away.
The muscle memory of the swear words you've been saying for the last 10 years at the workplace is just going to be removed from the memory of your tongue. Yep. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I remember using an analogy. Oh my gosh, bro, the Holy Spirit is moving right now. I'm not even joking. You better speak in tongues.
I was.
Listen. Listen. I gave an analogy that you gave at a high school boys small group one night. You said to these high school boys, hey, when you sin, we have this tendency, whatever you were saying, you're like, we have this tendency to give up, and we're like, well, we already sinned, so what's another time? And we get in this place of defeat, and we allow the enemy to like trick us into thinking that like that's just where we belong. And you said, because it was a bunch of freaking athletes, you're like, hey, if the other team scores a touchdown, do you say good game and go home? No. Nobody's like, oh my gosh. No, dude. We're in the first quarter. You're in the second quarter. You could even be in the fourth quarter. Yeah. They score a touchdown. It's not game over. Yeah. There's still hope. What are you doing? You're getting back on the field, and you're going to run another play, because if you get another touchdown, doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter that the enemy won a battle. You have to get back in the game. And I gave this analogy to him. I'm like, dude, whenever you sin, you're going to feel this thing of defeat and shame because the enemy wants to put you in this place.
The game's not over.
I'm like, I remember telling him, dude, it's just like in a football game. If somebody scores a touchdown, imagine if the other team, as soon as you score a touchdown, they just quit.
Yeah, 7-0.
No, it's over. There's an interception. They run it back for a touchdown.
There's 42 minutes left in the game.
And you're like, man, I knew our defense couldn't do it. Yeah. I just knew they were going to fail. Yeah. No, it's time to get back on the field and keep playing the game, dude. Yeah. And I explained that to him. It's a process. So that's kind of cool that I'm bringing that up now. It was something that you said. I mean, dude, that was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And that stuck with me. I've used that analogy a lot with people, especially for somebody who's like, when a new believer has that rude wake-up call of like, gosh. But anyway, this is all conversations that a lot of small churches, they don't have these conversations because they never get to the point. And if the guy said the F, this is what would happen in a lot of small churches.
Oh, dude, if this would happen in a church I grew up in.
Dude, okay.
A church I grew up in.
I know what some of them would say. What would they say? I say, man, you can effing sing.
Oh, we don't talk like that in the house of the Lord.
Exactly what I would have said.
We do not talk like that in the Lord's house.
Oh.
We do not use that language.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And take that hat off, son. Dude, I've had those people. Because you know what?
Holy crap.
Dude, I've said damn by accident. Oh. Or I've said...
You say a bad word?
The S word.
You can't accidentally say damn, PJ.
I accidentally said it one time.
No, you did.
I did. I accidentally did.
Were you saying dang and man and it turned into damn?
No, I was just saying... Actually, it was true story. at a Bible study, I was giving the analogy of grace being like a dam. So I was like saying dam a lot already, but in terms of like the Hoover Dam.
And you're like, gotta forgive all all that damn sin.
But I did say something like, you got to give up these damn drugs, or I did something like that.
Okay, some righteous indignation. All right, I like that.
A mom overheard.
Ooh. Oh,
A mom overheard.
I got the call.
Yes, and you got the call.
I remember this,
Hey,
bro.
this guy, Thursday night, we're at your parents' house.
Holy crap.
And-
I remember this conversation with this parent.
And it's like,
She
dude.
was very upset.
She was very upset. And you know what? Her son never came back.
It sucks, dude, because it's exactly where he needed to be.
Yeah.
And it could have been maybe the conversation I had with her was not like very reassuring because I defended you.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this guy is the right dude to lead this group. He's ministering to these
You were over
students.
youth at the time.
He loves them, and I'm saying to them, I'm like, listen, if you, and I did say this may have been why she didn't bring him back. I said, there are kids that are gonna come to this group.
We had a group
that are going, they don't know Jesus. Yeah. Like, we're inviting them to show up. Yeah. So if you are trying to put your kid in a bubble and protect him from that.
I think this is like that put your kid in a Christian school thing.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We want your son to be there, to be a part of this community, but just know, like, I can't guarantee that stuff isn't going to happen. Yeah. And I probably would have brought up
you
the
were
fact
a 21-year-old leader at the time
I don't know
being
how
a 30-year-old leader now.
Well, I think I brought up also, like, he's going to school and he's hearing all of this stuff anyway.
Not my little boy.
But like,
he's homeschooled and we never talk that way.
No, he was in a public school. Like,
I know, but
so it's like this. It was this thing. But guess what, dude?
Hey, God moved. Kids' lives were changed.
But I see we don't talk like that here. And if you're going to keep talking like that here, then this ain't the place for you, boy. I could see somebody saying that in a smaller church where their priority is to correct people.
Ooh.
We need to make sure that you act like us and that you look like us, because this is what Christians look like and this is how Christians act, as opposed to our philosophy.
You can belong before you believe.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Other people would say that's a watering down of the Spirit.
Yeah.
No, dude. Jesus hung out with sinners so much that people accused him of being a drunkard.
Yeah.
They accused Jesus and his followers of being drunkards. Why? Because they were probably surrounded by a bunch of drunkards.
They may have smelt like it because they were being leaned on amongst the mead drinkers.
They were around notorious sinners. Yeah. And he would often have dinner with notorious sinners. Yeah. That's what one of the accounts says in Scripture. If you are not willing,
buckle your seatbelts, listener.
If you're dining with notorious sinners,
this is for the church
they're
person.
Comfortable around you. They're being themselves.
Yeah. And
they're acting like sinners. There's probably some stuff they're doing where Jesus would have never done those things. But he knew, well, I've got to freaking have dinner with
Jesus is turning wine back into water. Stop.
I love it. Oh, that's so good. He's like, as he's drinking it, he's just like, as it's going into his body,
just
turning into
water.
Oh my gosh. No, but like he knew, I've got to build relationships with these people. I need to have dinner with them. They've got to be comfortable with me, because I need them to know that I care about them, that I love them, that I have their best interests in mind before I tell them, hey, dude, you got to stop stealing. You've got to stop being dishonest. You've got to stop swindling poor people out of money. You've got to. He's talking to tax collector. He's talking to. You got to.
At the time, we're notorious
stop
sinners.
Being adulterers. You've got to stop doing these things, right? Mm-hmm. You can't say that the first time you meet them right out of the bat, because that person is not going to freaking listen to you, because the devil gets in and our human nature goes, who the frick does this guy think he is? He doesn't know me.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important for us to follow the same model that Jesus followed.
Yes.
Meet people's needs.
Yes.
Have dinner with the notorious sinners. Yeah. And then you are giving room in the relationship for you to minister to them with the gospel. So, and we're talking a lot about evangelism, because there's different large churches, they intentionally prioritize evangelism Because that's one of the byproducts of reaching lost people is your numbers are added to.
Yeah.
So this is a challenge that I would say to smaller churches, where maybe you're a small church and you don't want to be a small church. That's not something you've done intentionally. It's just happening and you're not really sure what to do. Any church that grew was growing because they started being intentional about things.
Mm-hmm.
They started saying, we're going to be intentional about our worship services. The musicians are going to be prepared, and we're going to be intentional about
The prayers that come in the prayer bin.
What do you mean?
Just like everything that we do here.
Oh, we're going to be intentional about offering people a time to pray.
Yeah.
We're going to be intentional about how we treat our first-time guests. I'm not telling you how to do it, but whatever you're doing, it should be because you intentionally decided that that's how you should do it as a church, not because you just let it happen by accident. Because if you don't do something intentionally, people who serve on your teams or the congregation, they'll start doing it the way they think it should be done. And be intentional about making sure the bathrooms are clean, creating an excellent experience for people to come in. Unfortunately, people are looking for a reason to leave church as soon as they walk in.
Yes.
So if you have bad music, you got singers that are out of key, you've got lyrics that are behind so you can't follow it, you've got microphones that cut in and out, and then you go to check your kid in and they have no check-in system. It's just like, hey, here's Jimmy, and you're just putting them in a classroom.
And the AC doesn't work because you got an LED screen instead of paying.
That's what I'm saying. You go in the bathroom, and it needs to be renovated. There's cracked tiles everywhere.
Smells like a daycare.
Now, do the best with what you have.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to renovate the bathroom, then just make sure it's spotless clean.
Hey,
make sure it's clean.
Febreze that bad boy.
Make sure it's clean. So be intentional. And I think if you are intentional with the aspects of doing church, right, it will start growing because you'll be a good steward of it. And if you're a good steward of it, God will say, look how they did with this little that I gave them. I can give them more. I can trust them with more.
Dude, when I came to Discover Life, we were running 500. There's families I've met. There's moms I've met.
Mm-hmm.
And some of their early prayers was like, pray for my son. My son has lost himself in high school.
Right.
I literally am thinking of 3 kids right now in my head.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them to come to church. Will you just meet them? Will you talk to them? Literally. Sure, of course, I'd love to. It's been over 12 years. I still have relationships with some of them. And one of them just finally came around.
Wow.
This mom has been praying for this kid to come back to the Lord. If we would have just had that small church mindset and be like, hey, doors are closed. We're at capacity. We don't have room for your son. I know you've been praying for 8 years for him to stop doing that and to come back. But we don't have room anymore. No, if we have that mindset, if you have that mindset, look at the people you're doing life with. Is their whole family at your church? If not, your church has some room to grow.
Yeah. And
Start there.
It's so good to put the magnifying glass on it.
Yeah.
Because saying something like, I prefer a church of like 200 people. That's kind of like, oh, wow, that's really righteous of them because they like a smaller community. And like, it's almost like, well, no, wait, let's dig deeper into what that really means.
Yeah.
It means that eventually the church just becomes what it is and it stays like that. And there's no priority on reaching lost people. And somebody like who you're saying, what you're saying is if 200 is the max, you got to pick and choose.
Yeah. We got to kick someone out to let him in. I
What a
mean,
stupid
Sister
thing.
Pat is getting old, right?
We'll call you when the next senior dies from our senior group. I think it's a good conversation to always be having because we should also be critiquing how we do church.
Yeah, which we do.
All the time.
All the time.
Holy crap. I've been here for 10 years and not a single year we have done everything the same way.
Yeah.
We are constantly changing and figuring out what can work better, not because we want to be the biggest church, but because people are going to die and go to hell, and we have to do everything we can.
We're not cool with that.
Not good with it. I'm gonna make the devil work really freaking hard and still lose. He's not gonna get them. I'm going to do everything I can.
I want to rear naked
to make
choke
sure.
the devil. I want to put him in your kid's jiu-jitsu class.
Dude, sometimes it's kind of like he's kind of just like he's a powerful being. I mean, the devil has power. He's been given
also
authority.
apparently gorgeous.
Yeah, people like him. People like him.
People like the guy.
People like him. When you have the authority from Christ, he's like a chihuahua.
Yeah.
Oh, he freaking barks.
Annoying
He's
little
yappy.
yapper dog.
He's yappy. He'll bite your ankles. It'll distract
Chiquito
you.
Taco Bell.
It'll get you in the wrong mood, right? And so, you know what you got to do. I mean, please, I'm not saying we need to have child abuse, but if your
Animal
chihuahua
abuse?
animal. What I said, child abuse.
Yeah. Oh, are you one of those people
Animal
think like
abuse.
dogs are people's kids?
No.
I have those friends. It's like, oh, I gotta go see my son.
Yep.
You don't even have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh no, my dog.
Yeah,
Dude,
exactly.
shut
Stupid.
up.
Yes. They don't have real kids yet. No, but listen, the chihuahua it needs to be kicked out of the yard. It needs to be kicked out of the yard. And so I'm not. It is. That's a great analogy because every chihuahua I've ever met is like a little devil.
It's
They're
just a kickable dog.
demonic.
It's
Very
a kickable dog.
Very, very kickable. And God didn't make that one. That's from humans messing with what God made.
Let's be honest. Let's
Oh
be
my
honest.
gosh. Well, we love you guys. Thank you for listening to the Dumb Saints podcast. We need to have something a little more lighthearted next week, I think.
Yeah.
So, but this has hopefully been helpful to some. If you stayed along for this whole conversation, even though you disagree with a lot of stuff that we said, I pray that everything that we said, whatever it is, not everything we said is maybe great. Maybe there's some things that isn't for you. But I pray that the Lord would help you sift through, in spite of our idiocracy, me and PJ's dumbness, that you would
Did I get
find
to say
some
that dog
wisdom
is
that would be able to
kickable?
help you. Yeah.
Like, they just forgot all the good stuff we just said.
That's right.
But now they just imagine my size 12
Yep.
shoe kicking a dog.
Yeah, well, we're the Dumb Saints.
I also don't have a pet dog.
We're the Dumb Saints. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Hallelujah.